welcome back to the show. Let's try and capture Alexi Laiho's guitar tone using the Marshall DSL20 and a few stomps. I'll make sure I let him know, mate, but yeah, I found Alexi's guitar tone was a really mid-focus sort of attack that really didn't change throughout the years, so we could really capture the guitar tone just once and not just for each album. The guitar I'm using today is an Alexi 600 with a passive EMG HZH4 pickup, which is a ceramic magnet, and it's a little bit more articulate, less sustaining than an active 81, I suppose, and also less compressed, so it's a lot more it's aggressive in a way, but it shows up all the little nuances in your playing, shows up the mistakes as well, so it's not as forgiving as an active 81. And it's really good for those Alexi Laiho riffs like that. And for some of you that don't really recognize this guitar, it's one that I bought secondhand years ago. It was smashed, it was broken, and I've spent years sort of doing it up and having different paint jobs. And recently I just painted it the satin black, and I actually really like it like this. It just looks really cool. It's super aggressive guitar, perfect for all the riffs that I like playing here. So building the tone through the Marshall DSL, I start with a little bit of reverb. The reverb is about halfway, and we've got it like this because a lot of Alexi's riffs really had that Randy Rhoads inspired little riffs between chords and everything, and it just makes that sound a little bit fuller, I suppose. The resonance and bass are really wound back because Alexi's tone is super mid-focused just to make those riffs really punch through the mix. The treble and the presence are just wound off slightly so it's not too harsh at the top end, and the gain's about halfway. And so building the tone, that's a good foundation for the amp, but a lot of his tone comes from the front end. And looking down at the pedal board, I'm using the Boss NS2 in the 4-cable method as per normal. And building the front end of this, I'm using the MXR 6-band EQ and the Wild Overdrive. Really, the Wild Overdrive is just to really tighten things up and make things a little bit more focused. The gain is set to nothing and the output and tone is set just neutral. The real body to this tone comes from the MXR 6-band in the front, and you can see I'm pushing the mids there. It really changes the front end of the amp. I had a discussion with a good mate at work the other day about trying to describe tones and why you do those certain things. And I find the MXR 6-band in the front, it changes the way that the amp reacts in the front end. And so if you push the mid frequencies in the front end, you get that really aggressive attack. So think of changing the front end to be like a snare drum. So it's got that sort of harshness about it. And if I was then to scoop out that front end and take all the mids out and push the bass and the treble, then you'd get more of like a kick drum style attack at the front end. So once you've changed the front end of the amp to either a snare sounding attack or a kick drum sounding attack, when it comes back around to the 10-band EQ in the loop, you're not actually changing the snare back into a kick drum or anything. All you're doing is either adding more bass to that snare or scooping out that snare. It's still a snare. And same with the kick drum sort of response. And that's probably the easiest way to try and describe the way that I manipulate the front end of the amp and then change it again on the output. So you really want a kick drum, but you want the kick drum to be a little bit more mid-focused, I suppose. You can push the mids on the output side of it. And that's just the way that I go about sculpting tones. So you can really pretty much get any tone you want out of any amp, just doing those few things and just thinking about it fairly rationally, I guess. And so right now, this is just the amp on its own without any change to the front end or effects loop. And now we'll just add to that the Wild Overdrive. Now the MXR 6-band. So to give that tone just a little bit more life, a little bit more body in the low end, and just make it sound nicer overall, I've got the MXR 10 band in the effects loop just set just to fill in those blanks and add the frequencies where we want them to be, just so the tone sounds complete. And you get the idea with that. The 10 band really works just to tie everything in and make the overall sound just like a pleasant sound to listen to, I suppose. Yeah. For capturing today's recording, I'm going through the 2 Notes Torpedo Captor X, and that's just going straight into my audio interface, and it's simulating the mic'd up cab and speaker just for this, so there's actually no noise in the room. All you hear coming out is, that's it, but I get the full sound through the headphones, and you guys too. It's just got a really true sound that sounds just like a mic'd up cabinet in this room, but I just don't have the noise and everything that goes with it, so it suits me perfectly. So to get that solo tone that I used on the intro there for Every Time I Die, I actually turned on the carbon copy delay, which is in the effects loop as well. And in the front end of the amp, I've got the SD1 overdrive, which is pretty much set like the Zakk Wylde overdrive, but I've just scooped off a little bit of that high end on the tone, and it's just given that little bit extra drive like I can use for a stomp box. I could just turn up the Zakk Wylde overdrive to suit, but I thought I'd rather just have a pedal already set for a solo and just turn it on. Alexi always had the coolest harmonies in those songs, and I don't think Rip Latvia really got enough recognition for how he played as a secondary guitarist to Alexi. And just some of those rhythms like the and guitar 2. And the way this guitar tone is set up, it's a little bit different than most metal guitar tones, but it allows just those big fat chords to be heard, like the... And it really just allows that sort of chunkiness of those chords to really shine through when you're playing. I've really enjoyed this guitar tone just because it really focuses on playing the guitar for what it is and making each note stand out, and more about the note choice rather than just a really aggressive sound. I've had a great time this week going over all the riffs and all the songs from Children of Bodom. Really challenging, a lot of fun to play, but look, Alexi sure will be missed by me, by many, and I really hope his legacy lives on, and I'll keep playing it for years to come. So all that being said, guys, take care. I'll see you next week. Bye.